All right, joining us now from D.C. is Leland Vittert, who, listen to this title, News Nation's chief Washington anchor. Wow. So, I'm on with Vittert every Monday on News Nation, and he has a lot of experience in the Middle East. And, of course, he's watching the coverage because he's right in the middle of it. So where did I go wrong in my talking points memo?
I don't think it's what you said, Bill. I think it's what you didn't say. We don't know whether or not the Strait of Hormuz is open. The Wall Street Journal is reporting the Iranians are charging tolls in Bitcoin and in Chinese yuan. I'm old enough to remember when sending billions of dollars to the Iranians was a bad idea. Allowing them to receive massive amounts of funds, especially in cryptocurrency, is a bad idea because we know what they're going to do with it, which is they're going to try and fund terrorists to kill Americans.
Okay, but let me stop you there. That toll is paid for by the shipping companies. That's who pays for it. Okay,
right.
So it's Iran's got its hand out. You put money in the hand or you don't put it in the hand. They don't control anything, as I said.
Potato, tomato. If I say to you, Bill, if you want to walk past me, you have to give me $1 million, or otherwise I'm going to start firing cruise missiles at you.
They don't have cruise missiles down there.
Okay, you want to call? Okay, they have remotely piloted drones, and yes, they do have some cruise missiles, and they still have the anti-ship missiles that China gave them. This is beside the point. We don't know is the real answer because we don't know what the final deal is. You're a reporter, so am I. I don't trust what the White House says. I don't trust what the Iranians say. I wait to see what happens. If the uranium comes out of Iran and into U.S. hands, that is an enormous, unmitigated, walk-off grand slam home run for Donald Trump. If the Iranians are still able in a month to charge tolls to shipping companies because otherwise the companies can't get insurance for fear of being shot at by the Iranians, then it is an unmitigated disaster for President Trump because we get the status quo with the Iranians getting more and more money. We just don't know yet. You have to evaluate the ground truth based on an objective set of criteria.
Okay, that's fair. But these people who are saying we lost,
they're wrong.
I mean, no,
so
but
it's
far beyond wrong. It's subversive because they have to know the negotiation doesn't start until Saturday. All right, and why would the Iranians even bother to negotiate if they weren't getting pummeled? They wouldn't.
Well, two ways to look at that, right? I just got recently married, so go with me for a second here. If the Iranians view Trump as needing a deal, as you said on my show, you said I don't want to use the word desperately, but he needs a deal. If I show up at a Persian rug store and the guy selling me the rug knows that my wife told me, you better buy a rug or you're not coming home tonight, I'm not going to get a good deal on the rug. And that is the problem right now. The Iranians view Trump as needing a deal. And to your point, they don't care if they die. They don't care if their people die. They are going to extract the highest price possible. And because they think Trump needs a deal, the price is going to be very high.
But the counter to that is if you don't do the deal that President Trump wants, that there's going to be hell to pay. And you're right, they don't care, but they did come to the table in Pakistan.
They've always been at the table. It's been the U.S. who has said we don't want to negotiate. The Iranians were saying they would negotiate 38 days ago. They were the ones crying that the negotiations weren't continuing. So the Iranian position hasn't changed. But I'll give you one more thought on this. The Trump process here shows a fundamental misunderstanding of the Iranian regime. You have said that you can't foment regime change. I got very excited yesterday when the U.S. bombed Karg Island, which is the Iranian oil export center yesterday, because if Trump cut off the money flow into the regime that the regime uses to pay everyone off and stay in power in Iran, the regime would fall apart from the inside Bombing power plants doesn't do that. I think that President Trump has been getting some bad advice, perhaps from Pete Hegseth, about how to bring the Iranian regime to its knees. And I would look towards Israel, that makes a very big separation between the Iranian people and the Iranian regime. That's something President Trump stopped doing a couple of weeks ago. I don't know why.
So you believe that if there's a choke point for the Iranians getting money from whatever source, they'll be overthrown from within. The generals will turn on them.
Yes. And the reason I know that is because the past couple of times the Iranians have been willing to negotiate at all, albeit they've gotten sweetheart deals, has been when the regime was threatened because they were financially strangled. That is the choke point to the regime, because the generals will stop getting paid off. The generals will turn and become far more open to entrees from either the United States or Israel.
But China and Russia are financing Iran to some extent. So it would be very difficult to choke that flow of assets off.
No, not at all. And here's why. Because you can choke off the ability for Iran to export its oil to China very easily. You can shut down the ability for the Chinese to get money and equipment in and material in. The Russians are broke themselves. Why do you think the Iranians got so upset when the Israelis bombed their gas facilities and their oil facilities? The Iranian regime, just think about what the mullahs care about and the IRGC cares about. They don't care about their people or power plants or bridges. They care about staying in power. What keeps them in power? The flow of money. Where's the flow of money come from? Oil. Stop that, and you have them buy whatever body part you would like to note on your show.
So then you would be in favor of the United States' next move, should the negotiation in Pakistan not bear fruition, U.S. troops seizing Hormuz?
Absolutely. And not only seizing Hormuz, which I don't know what they're seizing it from, because, Bill, you said the Iranians didn't control it. So who are they seizing it from?
Well, you have to take out the drones and the people that surround the area that are firing.
That sounds like control, doesn't it?
No, it's not control in the sense that Iran, all right, have anything other than they're using terror methods. Okay,
that's control.
Well, not really. I mean, they've been using terror methods against Israel for 4 decades. They don't control Israel. All right, so boots on the ground, I hate that. If we, in a perfect world, NATO would be with us, of course. If we sent them in, it wouldn't take long to clean those people out. You know that.
No, it wouldn't. And I don't think you would even have to quote unquote seize or take the ground. What you'd have to do is sail a couple of U.S. Navy cruisers through there as escort ships. And you might lose a cruiser or two, to which you point out the American people wouldn't be willing to do. When I ask admirals and generals, why didn't you all plan for this and have a plan to open the strait? It's basically the cost would be too high. That I think is the worst thing that has come out of this, is that the Iranians now know they can blackmail the world by exerting this control, this force, this terror method, whatever you want to call it, over the Strait of Hormuz and thus over the world economy. And Trump has to take away that feeling on their part by choking them off. The only way this changes is by getting rid of the Iranian regime. The only way you get rid of the Iranian regime is by killing it from within, by choking off its control and its ability to pay everybody off.
So you wouldn't be in favor of the 2-week ceasefire?
No.
You would have obliterated the country.
No, I wouldn't have obliterated the country. I wouldn't have listened to what Trump said. I would have seen what Trump did, which was attack the oil facilities, and stayed on that. It is very clear the Iranians have not capitulated, okay? With what they're saying right now and the fact that they're charging tolls and the fact that they're complaining that the U.S. broke the ceasefire and on and on and on, shows that they're not begging for mercy. Quite the opposite. It was actually the Chinese, reportedly, who forced them to come to the negotiating table. That's not people who are in a position that they feel that they need to make a deal. As I said, the Iranians think Trump needs to make a deal. That's a bad position to be in. Give it a couple weeks, choke off their oil, and then maybe the Iranians would be in a position where they feel like they needed to make a deal. How about this? Give us the uranium, then we'll talk. That would have been a starting point.
But they weren't going to do that. They wanted to talk before the uranium thing was made.
So who sets the rules? The Iranians or President Trump, the leader of the free world?
It's a negotiation. No, you're right. You're right in the sense that the mullahs are not cowed by President Trump. And then you also have China in the background, and China's got a lot to say about this because it gets 80% of its oil from Iran and doesn't want this to go on much longer, which is a hopeful sign because the Chinese can put a lot of pressure on the mullahs. And, if it works in concert with the United States, even furtively, that could lead. See, I would have given them the 2 weeks because, the war crime drum, United States is
Bill,
horrible.
how many times did we extend this deadline? Was it 4 or 5? The Iranians were given opportunities.
What do you mean? In totality?
2 or 3 weeks ago, Trump was talking about bombing
but 2
power
or 3
plants
weeks ago, they had a whole new regime that wasn't dead. And they had
they're the same.
The capacity.
They're the same people. They're all the same.
They may be the same people, but the circumstances changed. So they're not nearly as strong militarily as they were. You know that. I mean, they're ballistic. They
don't need to be strong militarily. They need to have their uranium, and they need to be able to effectively shut down the Strait
Why do
of
they
Hormuz.
need uranium? They don't need that uranium.
No,
Why
because
do they need it?
they need it because that's their negotiating point. That is their.
They're going to have to give that up. They're going to have to give it up.
Oh,
what?
Okay, they don't seem to think that. And there's no indication in any way, shape, or form that they are going to agree to that. What I will say to this, as long as the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, members of it, associates of it, whatever you want to call them, are in charge of Iran, until there is real change in Iran from a popular uprising, that country will spend the rest of its life, because it is controlled by a Shia Marxist ideology, trying to kill Americans and do everything they can to harm America.
It's going to be a tough sell. Right. Now, if you're right and they don't get anywhere in Islamabad, it's going to be a tough sell because the world does not want to confront the mullahs. Final word.
That is the final word, is that there is no deal that Trump can sell as a win, that Iran will actually live by and that's enforceable, and that Israel believes guarantees its security. Those three things do not exist. The only way to break that triangle is by cutting off this regime's source of funding. You don't do that at a negotiating table. You do that by cutting off their ability to export oil and not allow them to blackmail us.
That would require some ground action, that's for sure. All right, Leland, appreciate you coming on. Thank you.